Welcome back. Um, a little while ago, I did a video segment on anxiety, and I received quite a bit of feedback on that. And one of the most interesting things to me that was common with a lot of the things that I received was a lot of people want to know why I didn't include depression in with the anxiety. And there was quite a bit of remarks that I got, like, well, you mentioned a lot of good things about anxiety, but you didn't mention anything about depression at all. And I guess my biggest reason for that is that although there may be some correlation between anxiety and depression, personally I feel that they are two totally separate things. So my intentions were to make two separate videos, one on anxiety and one on depression. And what had happened was I eventually did one on anxiety, and I had not gotten around to do one on depression just yet. So I thought that this would be a good time to do a video on depression. Now, the first important thing that I would like to stress, my own personal opinion, is that anxiety is more of an autonomic response on a subconscious level, and I feel that depression is more on a conscious level. And having said that, a lot of people believe that it's a hereditary thing, and there are a lot of doctors that will argue that depression is hereditary. And if you feel that you suffer from depression and that there's a long line of history in your family, then maybe your best result would be to obviously go see a doctor, which is something that you should probably do anyways, no matter what. However, if you feel that it's not a hereditary thing, and that it's not an issue where you feel that you should be on any type of medication for, I would suggest, if you are going to see a doctor, the best thing would be to go see holistic psychotherapist. There are all kinds of them out there, and they would give you proper cognitive treatment without having to do medication, which would be the best way to go. Speaking of depression, from my own personal experiences, I have found that depression comes more from a lack of identity. Not really knowing who you are, not accepting who you are. Now, I've been through depression myself, and led to a long line of drug addiction, which I suffered from for many years. And even though I haven't used in a long time, it's still something that I deal with as an addict. It's always an ongoing battle, right? But the thing about depression is it's so much on a social level. And what I mean by that is, when I was younger, I felt like what was important for me was to be popular. Now, I wasn't a loser by any ways. And when I mean loser is like, unpopular. Shouldn't say loser. Should say I wasn't unpopular, but my main concern was I wanted to be popular. So I always presented myself in a way that wasn't really me because I wanted to be popular. I wanted people to like who I was. And without me realizing it, that started this stage of me growing into somebody that I was not, making this fake persona of somebody that I'm not. And that was the first start of it at an early age, of progressing into this persona, this fake person that wasn't really raw, wasn't really me. And as I got older and I started to behave in certain ways that made me popular, um, it wasn't good enough. I didn't feel like satisfied inside. So then, like, I said to myself, like, I want to be, I want to be in good shape. I want to be strong. So I started working out and I started doing steroids, and I would go to the gym all the time and I would do everything to look buff and chiseled and, walk with my shirt off and be all proud and like, look at me, I'm in great shape, and, you know, I'm popular and I've got a good body and I'm in good shape, and, get girls to like you and stuff like that, right? I'm strong. And then after a while, that didn't really seem to satisfy me anymore. And I couldn't figure out why I was unsatisfied. And then I would say to myself, well, I need money. I need to go and I need to buy things. I need to show people that I got lots of money. So then I would think of ways to hustle up money, little scams, selling drugs, and trying to accumulate as much money as I could. I wanted to have more money than the next guy, than my friends or anybody else. I wanted to like be able to have the fattest wad in my pocket and say, look, I got money, I got connections, I look good, I'm popular, and I can go to the bar, I can spend $1,000 and I can do this and I can do that. And after a while, that wasn't satisfying anymore. And I thought to myself, why am I unsatisfied? I can't figure this out. And then I started saying to myself, well, it's because I'm living dishonestly. So, I have all this stuff, but I'm doing it in a way that the next guy, he has the same stuff, but he's working a good job, and he's doing it in an honest way. So I would say to myself, okay, well, I gotta go out and I gotta get a job. So, you go out and you get jobs, and you try to work and do things in an honest way. And during this whole time too, like, I would be dabbling back and forth with drugs and, trying to satisfy something that I had no idea was missing. And eventually I come to the point where even making money legitimately just wasn't good enough anymore. I would tell myself, oh, I need to settle down, I need a girlfriend, I would get that, but I still wasn't happy, you know? And I was doing all these things. I would come up with all these things that I need to get this, I need to get that, and all this superficial stuff. And I would achieve these goals. And still, after a while, I just wouldn't be happy anymore. It was short term gains, short term goals that would make me happy for the short term. But I was still like very empty inside. And I would have like this really heavy depression. And then it would get to a point where I was doing so much drugs to fill this void that eventually everything just came crashing down. And, it took pretty close to a rock bottom in treatment and stuff like that for me to realize that the whole time I was living my life trying to be somebody that I was not. Trying to present myself in front of people somebody that did not exist. And when I finally figured that out, and I finally figured out who I am, who Rob is, who my identity is, and how I want to live my life, all of a sudden it was like a rebirth, like an awakening, where it was like, this is who I am, and I accept that. And, I came to that realization, and, a little while went by, and, I would start writing, and I would start talking about it on Facebook. I would say stuff like, positive things, and, I would say, I've discovered who I am. And I know a lot of people, a lot of friends of mine, even though they never really said anything, they would kind of chuckle about it and laugh. And I know a lot of people probably thought I went batshit crazy, you know like one of those born again Christians that feel like, I don't know, like God touched them on the shoulder, and now everything he does is a blessing, and everybody is a sinner, like one of those reformed sinners or something. And there are a lot of people out there that are like that, and bless them if that's what works for you. But just giving an example, a lot of people will look at people and they'll be like, oh, look at that guy, he's a reformed sinner, he found God, now all of us are scum. I think a lot of people got that impression from me, but that was not what it was at all. I mean, I didn't really know so much what it was, but I figured it out, is that I've come to terms with who I am. I know who I am now, and I know how to accept who I am. And even though I still go through problems in life, and even though, there are still challenges, and there's days where I get pissed off and I feel like flipping out, I still do not come anywhere close, nowhere near as close as that level of depression that I used to fall into all the time. And so when I talk to people every once in a while, I got some friends that are going through some things, and, they come up to me and they talk to me and they say, well, like, they know what I've been through, and they know how I am now, and they say, well, like, how do you do it? Like, I'm so fucking depressed right now. And I tell them, I say, it's because you don't know who you are. And they look at me like I just asked them the square root of something. like they just saw a bear or something, or a ghost, or or they're offended, you know. They say like, oh, I know who I am, and oh, what do you mean? And I'm like, you're taking it the wrong way. Don't be offended. It's not that, like, you look in the mirror and you're like, who is that person? But you most likely have lived your life superficial, presenting yourself as a product for sale to other people, because basically that's the way our society is, especially now with the social media and all that stuff. It's crazy. Everybody's like a model now, you know. And a lot of people are okay with that. They can accept that and live their life and be happy. But a lot of people are packaging themselves into being something that they're not. And deep inside, that leaves something empty inside them. And there's like this hole. And, there's a lot of people that have made choices in life because they felt the pressure of family or other people, and they decided to rush into marriage, or rush into having a family, or rush into decisions that they didn't feel 100% confident about, and they're depressed. There are also some people that feel that they should have all this stuff from outside world, and they haven't accumulated this stuff yet. Like, I'm not married, I don't have kids, but I'm okay with that. But there was a time where I felt the pressure, where it was like I should have that, and that it makes you depressed. So, when I think of depression, I mean, a lot of people do say it's an inherited thing or it's a chemical thing, and if you feel that that's what it is, then you should see a doctor and all that. But I'd say before doctors and medication and all that, most people are suffering from a different kind of depression. I think for the most part, they're feeling empty inside. And I believe it's because they really don't know who they are, or they can't accept who they are. And I know that from my own personal experience. I know who I am now. I know what I want to be in life, what I'm striving to be, what I'm working towards. And I'm getting there. Slowly but surely, I'm getting there. I think most people have this very crude way of looking at what success is, and they're striving so hard to be successful, and when they don't reach that, they feel like all of society is looking down on them, and it leaves them empty inside. Like, remember something: success really, by definition, means achieving an ideal or goal, or working towards the achievement of an ideal or goal. That's success. So if you told yourself that, you know, all I really want from life is to have a decent job, have a wife and a couple kids, and you end up having a decent job, a wife and a couple kids, that's successful. If you told yourself, you know what, all I want to do is just be able to move out of home and stand on my own 2 feet, and you're on your own, you're standing on your own 2 feet, you're paying your own bills, that's successful. You don't have to be a supermodel. You don't have to have a crazy degree. If that's what you want in life and you achieve that, that's great. But you don't have to have all these things that the outer society says that you have to have in order to feel like you're a success in life. And I think because we do that to ourselves, because we put pressure on ourselves in that way, I think that draws a lot of depression and it puts us in this hole. I mean, it's pretty crazy when you look at the level of depression out there these days. There's all kinds of eating disorders, sleeping disorders, drug disorders. I mean, they say, okay, population is rising, so the rate of these things will rise as well. And that might be so. But there's a flip side to that too, where it could be society is just getting a little too superficial and a little too much. Now, you can't stop progress. You can't stop technology. You can't stop the way life is evolving and unraveling. But you can come to grips with some things. And from personal experience, I think that coming to grips with who you are and where you are in life, and being okay with who you are and where you are, is a huge leap for you. And it doesn't mean that this is, you're stuck and this is where you're going to be for the rest of your life. You can still push forward and strive for more. But don't put so much pressure on yourself. And that's depression to me. To me, I think the average depression that's out there is not so heavy duty and clinical. I think the average depression out there is mostly people that are unable to come to terms with who they are, where they've been, where they're going. And I think a lot of people just have no identity at all. I saw an interesting documentary. It was just a small clip on the internet, And um, this doctor was trying to show a correlation between like a dog when the owner dies, like the owner's pet that he had for like 20 years or something, the owner dies, and the dog, goes into this deep depression and dies. Well, a dog doesn't have the same social aspects as us. I mean, I think the dog is grieving and, doesn't really know how to deal with the grief, puts itself into a state of hypoarousal, and basically its brain just tells it, okay, you're just gonna lay there, you're not gonna eat, you're not gonna drink, and eventually the dog dies. Now, I remember when I was a kid on my mother's side, my grandfather died, and I think less than 2 weeks later, my mother's stepmother died, which was my grandfather's wife. Now, they were really old and they were married together for quite some time. And, my grandfather died, and then a few weeks later, his wife died. Now, I don't really know too much about it because it was in another country and I was really young. But I think in cases like that, and I've heard lots of them, I think it's basically people that get to a point in their life where they just don't want to deal with the grief. And if you don't want to deal with the grief, your brain has a way of putting yourself into a hypoarousal. It has a way of dealing with these things, and basically it can shut you down, make you go numb, and just wither away. It's kind of like when you see the videos of like genocides and stuff like that, and people, in like these crazy countries are doing these genocides, and guys are going around and they're shooting people, and you see like in the fields, you can see someone that's not quite dead, and they're just kind of laying there with bullets in them, and they're just kind of laying there, and they're not dead yet, but they're not fighting to stay alive. They're not screaming for help. They're kind of just laying there. And it's like their brain puts them into a state of hypoarousal where it's like, okay, I know in a matter of time you're just going to die. So you're just going to lay there. The brain's going to make you go numb. And you kind of just sit there and you wait for your time to come. And I mean, like, hypoarousal, is an actual thing. And if you look it up, there's all kinds of books on neuroscience and neuropsychology, and it's it's a real process that your brain goes through. You can put yourself into a hyper arousal where you're all jacked up and ready to fight for life, or you can put yourself in a hypo arousal where your brain basically says, okay, I'm ready to shut down, I'm ready to go. It's like a lot of people when they hear that they have cancer, some people want to fight. Some people, they hear the word cancer and they tell themselves, you know what, I'm ready to go. And then within a couple of weeks, they're dead. Because their brain tells them, so, like they tell themselves, like, okay, that's it. I've had a good life, I'm ready to go. And then that's all there is. And I think we do that to ourselves. I think our brain, especially on some subconscious level and on a conscious level, both levels, I think we do that to ourselves. And I think depression for the most case, I think we do it to ourselves. I think that society has this very superficial product placing packaging that we have to live and we have to abide by. And when we feel that we don't have that pristine Kardashian style life, we're insignificant, we're weak, we don't belong with the rest of them. And that's not necessarily so. When you can kind of let go and accept who you are and where you are, then you kind of realize that none of that bullshit matters anymore. I really don't care about being cool. I really don't care about being buff or in good shape anymore. I don't care about being like, if everyone in the neighborhood thinks I'm a badass or not. You know, I don't care about, I need money to live, but I don't really care about being like this G hustler. I don't care about none of that superficial bullshit that I once cared about. All I really care about now is being a learned individual. I like to learn. I want to continue to learn. I'll never stop learning. I like to be a wise man. I like to write. I like poetry. And I like long sunset walks on the beach. No, but, I just want to live life for me now, and I think that's what's important. I think we need to find out who we really truly are and what we really truly want to be without the influence of other people. And if we can make it there while we wanted it, not other people, I think that's how we can really achieve happiness and direction without this social stigma. And I think without the social stigma, we won't be so depressed. Now, there are some people that have some chemically imbalanced brains. There are cases where people get into accidents and they hit their heads, and the brain kind of, there are some like connections that are a little off, and it makes people depressed, you know and that happens, and that's something that science is getting better, medical science is getting better, and we're working towards fixing these problems. But for most of the people that have a healthy functioning brain, we put the depression on ourselves. And I mean, it's just my opinion, and I think that it's something worth considering listening to. And I would really, really like to hear what other people's opinions on that is, because it's such a vast subject with so much still to learn. I mean, there could be information that comes out next month that completely changes my whole view on it, you know. But from my experience and what I've learned and read, I think for the most part we bring depression on ourselves through social impetus and stuff like that. And I really believe that we could be the cure for it for the most part ourselves. And I would really like to hear what people's views are on that. You can contact me at Robbie at un-educatedphilosopher.com, and I appreciate the support and people sharing and stuff like that. And I'd like to hear your views on that. And have a nice day. Cheers.